What's going on, guys? I am BlackOpsAmazing. Welcome back to another zombies video on the channel, back with another zombies Q&A where we take your questions from the comment section below to do with the zombie storyline and Easter eggs, and we answer them. So as always, if you enjoyed today's video, you know what you guys know what to do. Leave a like rating if you want to, of course. If not, it's fine. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest zombies videos on the channel. Also, click that bell notification icon as well. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Here we go. So the first questions of today from Jax.exe says, what is Agartha? What is the Ether? And also, who are the Vril? How did the Vakuda steps merge with Origins? And then I think you got a little bit carried away. I don't exactly know what you're asking from then on, but I'll answer your first few questions anyway. So you've got to bear with me because even some of this stuff confuses me about the Ether and Agartha, but they are two different things. Agartha is a place, whereas the Ether is an energy. In the very beginning, there was only 4 things that existed: the Ether, the Keepers, and 2 beings who we know as Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man. We know that the Keepers crafted the summoning key, which allowed them to manipulate the Ether to change it for their own will, and they used this device, along with the Ether, to alter reality and create a new place called Agartha. So the Keepers created Agartha using the Ether's energy. And since we know the Ether was this massive source of energy, some of it became corrupted, it turned dark, and so the Keepers also began to experiment with that. They experimented with the dark ether, in which eventually it corrupted the minds of some of the Keepers, and we know it turned them into apothecans. And we also know that whoever has power over the ether, whoever gains control of the ether, also has the ability to control the zombies. Due to 115, since these zombies had a link to the ether, and if you control the ether, anything that's linked to it is under your control. So that's what the ether was. It is a mass energy, a power source, whereas like I said, Agartha was a place that was created by it. The Keepers created it using the ether to alter reality. Now, to us in real life, Agartha is a legendary kingdom that is said to be located in the center of the earth. And if we go over to Buried, which is another question that I want to answer in just a second, but the fracturing that we see in Buried is the rift, or a teleportation method that can take you from Earth to Agartha. And it seems like Agartha was the home for the Keepers. The Keepers created it, they lived there, but as we know, once some of the Keepers in Agartha became corrupted, a war broke out between the Keepers and apothecans, which led to the War of Agartha. Eventually, we know that the apothecans were banished and sent back to the Dark Ether, but their ultimate desire, above all else, was to return to Agartha. So that is those 2 answered. You also said, who were the Vril? Well, the Vril we believe to be the gatekeepers. That is just another name for them. And I think they're actually based off a book that was written in real life by someone called Edward Lighton. This book was written in 1871. It was called The Coming Race, and it was about a superior subterranean master race and the energy form called Vril. And I believe that is what the gatekeepers are based off. Vril is just another name for them. It's actually really interesting if you want to go and read that book or just look it up on the internet. There's all links here that you can make to zombies. Like I said, the gatekeepers, the golden rod, the Nazis, the Black Sun logo, and loads more stuff as well. And actually, if you'd like me to do a real life video of the Vril, let me know in the comment section below if you'd be interested in that. But yeah, that's what that is. You've also said in your questions, how did the Vakuda steps merge into the Origin steps? It just seems like Treyarch used those steps from the campaign as Easter egg steps in Origins. There's no link between the campaign or zombies. They're different universes, but it is cool. And then your other questions don't seem to make sense, but I've answered 4 different ones that you've said there. The next question, as I've pretty much just covered, but I want to answer it properly, is I did a video the other day about the hole in Mob of the Dead. Definitely check it out if you are interested, but I was also reminded that there's a hole that's pretty similar in Buried, and that is this one right here. It's really easy to see, you can't miss it, and I think I actually did a video on this a long time ago, but actually I want to talk about it again because I didn't really properly go over it. And actually, since I've also done that Mob of the Dead video, I think there could be a connection. Now, in that video for Mob, I said that this hole, we don't really know what it is. It just looks like a lava pit that is cracked through the ground of Alcatraz. It doesn't really make sense as it's nowhere else, just here. I said that it could be a few things. It could be like the gateway to hell. It could just be a reference to the devil, since this map takes place in Purgatory, or it could really mean nothing. But actually what I didn't think about is the fact that it looks very similar to the hole that we see in Buried, and we know that this crack that we see in Angola is a rift. This is the gateway to Agartha. And since they look similar, well, what if the one that we saw in Mob of the Dead was also a gateway to Agartha? You can see both of them are giant holes. They have this kind of like lava fire-ish look at the bottom of them, and also they kind of look like there's a teleporter in the middle of them as well. They have this yellow swish effect to them. But this hole, this crack that we see in the ground and buried, is the rift. We can presume that this rift was opened up due to the missiles hitting Earth, but we knew that the transit crew's end goal was to reach the rift. They were told by both Richtof and Maxis in Die Rise that they need to mend the rift. Their end goal was to come to Buried, to where the rift was located, and depending on which side of the Easter egg you do, Richtof wants you to mend it, he wants you to fix it or close it, so he can keep control of the zombies, whereas Maxis wants you to come here, so he can take control of the zombies. Since this rift is a gateway to Agartha, and because this town in Buried is the closest to this rift, that means that it was easier for Maxis to manipulate the ether from here. And as we know, anyone who manipulates the ether gains full control of the zombies. Richtofen already had that, so he wanted the rift closed. Maxis didn't have that, so he wanted the rift left open so he could gain control of the ether, meaning he could finally reach Agartha to be reunited with his daughter Samantha. And that's exactly what happened in Buried. Maxis gained control, he was reunited with Samantha, and Richtof and Sol became trapped inside of a zombie, because as we know, Maxis' side to the Easter egg was canon. That was what actually happened. So hopefully that explains the hole in Buried, and like I said, now I think about it, this one and also the one in Mob of the Dead look very similar, so I'm also thinking, well, what if that hole we saw in Mob was also a rift to Agartha? If not Agartha, maybe somewhere else. However, we do know that Mob doesn't take place in reality. What we see is it in purgatory. It's weird. Lunatic Goat says, BOA, is the whole world populated with zombies or just part of it? I think if it was just half of the world, the characters would just go to somewhere that isn't populated with zombies, but as far as I know, the whole world did become populated. 115 spread. We know that it also contaminates the air, so whoever's close to it gets infected, and then it spreads and keeps spreading, and also it got worse due to the rockets hitting different locations on the Earth as well, so it is the whole world that is populated with zombies, and there are just a few survivors besides from the transit crew that remained. Cameron said, hey BOA, love your videos, how old are you and what country or state do you live in? So I am 20 and I'm from Staffordshire in England. The next question says, BOA, so if Moon took place in 1996 and transit took place in 2025, then what were the transit crew doing for about 30 years? Well, that's wrong because Moon doesn't take place in 1996. I do know that a lot of people actually think this, just because a lot of the maps before, like Shangri-La, Call of the Dead, take place during this time, or at least in the 90s. But actually Moon, due to teleportation, takes place in the future, specifically in the year 2025. So Moon takes place in 2025, and Transit also takes place in 2025. However, Moon takes place on October the 13th, whereas Transit happens just a week later on October the 21st. But your question doesn't really have any relevance. Since Moon doesn't really have a link to Transit, it would make more sense if you were talking about Nuketown, because Nuketown and Moon take place at the same time. But yeah, there wasn't a 30-year gap between these two maps. There was actually just over a week. The next question from Fried Mind Delta Gaming says, BlackOpsAmazing, how come in BO2 Origins we don't have Gobblegums, even though Dr. Monty is still watching over the players? So probably just in terms of the game and mechanics, the Gobblegum system wasn't thought of on Black Ops 2. Also, Black Ops 2 was on the older consoles. They really had to restrict things that they could put in maps, even though, yes, there was giant freaking robots. But especially with the older consoles, they were limited to what content they could put on disc. Although I doubt that really had a part to play. BO2 was on the older consoles. The Gobblegum was a whole new mechanic, so just to add that onto one map, Origins, I bet would have been not only difficult, but also wouldn't have fitted for them to have just added this system at the end of BO2. There was no room for them to explain it. It just would have been random for the last map on BO2. But in terms of storyline, well, Dr. Monty had only just really focused on our characters in Origins. Because of what Group 935 did in France, unlocking the hidden tomb that had been sealed for hundreds of years, awakening the undead, messing up the timeline. Because of this, in Origins, that is when Dr. Monty started to watch over our characters. You can actually see in that map there is his red scarf tied onto a post, which is to signify that he's there or is present, he's watching. But he wasn't too involved then. It was only in the Giant and maps after that that Dr. Monty really started to get involved. So like I said, it wouldn't have really made sense for us to have Gobblegums and Origins, even though yes, Dr. Monty was watching and was helping us, but in other ways. And he didn't really properly start helping us or give us a plan until the end of that Easter egg, which leads on to the start of the next map, the Giant. So anyway guys, that is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, you know what to do, drop a like rating, make sure you guys are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest of these videos on the channel, click that notification icon, follow me on Twitter, links down in the description, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, goodbye.